Hi, my name is Devin, and I'm a rising junior at Lowell High School in San Diego, California. And for the remote program of Bootcamp Engineering 2020, I am, as you know, doing the obstacle avoiding robot with Arduino. And as you know as well, it does so much more than just obstacle avoid, but we will get into that in a little bit. Today I achieved my 5th milestone and 3rd modification, which was to add LEDs. I stated in my last video that it was going to be an additional camera that I would add, which was cool, but has yet to come in the mail. So here are the LEDs. Here is a brief demonstration of this. So the approach for these Adafruit NeoPixel LEDs was quite simple. Before I get into that, I'll tell you how I got into the LEDs. As I said before, the camera was on the way. It was still on the way, actually. So I needed something that was easy, accessible, and I thought it looked cool. So I wanted to add more of a visual effect to the obstacle avoidance function. So I added LEDs, and how I started with this is that it came in a strip, and I uncurled it and approximately measured the perimeter around the chassis here. And that ended up being approximately 42 neopixels, and then I just cut it there and wrapped it around and had a stick on the bottom, so all I had to do was stick it down. And it came with 3 little wire insert places here, and as the previous modifications, such as the servo and the Bluetooth module, all it needed was a connection to the 5-volt port, a ground port on the Arduino, and then also other ports, digital. So in this case, it would be the 5-volt ground and then port 5 for these LEDs. And I had to be careful about making sure the LEDs were in every time I uploaded, because the LEDs would not work if just one wire is in, and that goes for every project, but especially the LEDs because they're very visual. After this, I was done setting it up. I needed to know how they worked because the LEDs are quite new for me. I've worked with motors and circuits, but not really anything that has anything to do with lighting up, if you count this little LED. So how I did this was that I researched, and Adafruit has an amazing website, so I just looked up there and a bunch of other ones, and I found various strategies that you could use for setting it up. Unfortunately, they don't really have many that cater to the obstacle avoidance function, which I see as an increasing problem as I'm getting more and more into this project. And so I decided to just download the Adafruit library that they provide and then use the strand test that they gave. And after downloading that, I was able to see the lights glow in different brightnesses and different colors and at different speeds, and at one point it had a rainbow strip, which was really cool. And how each LED works is that they have a combination of red light, blue light, and green light, RGB, and has concentrations of each, and is able to produce whatever light you want based on the inserted concentrations. And so how I did this in the code was a combination of for loops and map functions, which is what my Bootcamp instructors advised me to do. And so what the map function allows you to do is dictate whatever LEDs are supposed to light up. And thankfully for me, all I wanted to do was kind of have a obstacle visual function. So I kind of divided it into 3 parts. The overall idea was that it would get brighter and brighter and brighter red, because that's just the color I wanted. And then when it got into a certain distance where it was ready to obstacle turn, it would blink, keep blinking. And I let it blink 3 times because I didn't want to waste that much time. And so the first measurements were 400, which is the maximum distance that the ultrasonic sensor can see. And then to 81 centimeters, and that was no light at all. And then from 80 centimeters to 16 centimeters, it would get incrementally brighter every time it got closer. And you can see all these demonstrations below. And then within 15 centimeters, it would start blinking red, also seen below. So once I was done with this, I needed to actually get it to work. So I needed to plug it in and test it, but unfortunately it did not work. So I was wondering why. Added it to my obstacle avoiding code and it just didn't work. So then what happened was that I tested it without the motors, because usually that's the first sign. You need to test it individually before you move on to the bigger aspect of the entire circuit. And it worked perfectly. I moved my hand closer and farther away and it worked great. But once I started the motors, it just didn't work. And what I then realized was that these LEDs are very power hungry, and one battery pack didn't suffice this need. So then I needed to add a second one, and this just opened up a world of problems. Once I added a second one, the motor driver just fried, and I just didn't know why. And upon my diagnosis, I realized that the motor driver had been connected to the Arduino and been feeding off of it instead of getting its power from the original battery pack. And when the battery pack, the second battery pack, and the Arduino all combined into the motor driver, it exceeded 12 volts, which is its maximum amount of voltage that it can take. It automatically fried, and that is what happened. So this took a bunch of time to figure out, but then I rewired everything. I got new parts. I got a new motor driver, new battery packs, new batteries, and still didn't work. And I just was increasingly confused because I fixed the mechanical part. Then I realized this is not going to be good enough, and it's too heavy to be working on carpet. So now I needed to test everything on hardwood floor, because that was a lot easier to dictate and to diagnose a problem. And so I have stopped using on carpet from now on. And so once I implemented these adjustments into the code, it ended up working great, and I was super happy when I was able to get these LEDs working. And then I incorporated two new functions where when I pressed the buttons on my app, the two buttons, they turned the color of what they were. So my voice command was orange, and my obstacle avoiding one was green, and they flashed that when I press the buttons now, which is cool. And yeah, so now I have LEDs incorporated to my project, and I'm ready for something new. This is supposed to be kind of a stepping stone and just kind of something to do to wait for my camera, and it ended up being very challenging, and I learned a lot. It is a very cool feature and one that I'm very proud of. The next step, hopefully if the camera gets here soon, will be to get that going. That's it for today. Thanks for watching.